So thank you so much for coming here today, for taking the time, for being here with us. Um, the one question that I have for you is: you used to work at Moralis, right? At that time, did you used to work with Ivan?
Well, technically, I started working as a researcher, so I just started writing like articles. It was just mostly like a intern, not an internship, just like a side job for me because I was in high school still.
Okay.
So, like looking for whatever thing I can do to essentially learn more about the space and make some money on the side. And since I'm originally from the Czech Republic, like salaries there are not great. And there was this job opening at something that was not called Moralis back then. It was before Moralis started. It was called the Ivan Tech Academy,
Nice.
and yeah, I was writing articles for a essentially like a tech review thing, where I was writing about different blockchains and how they work from a technical perspective. It was like a good learning opportunity for the beginning, but yeah, that's about it.
And how did you got so excited about it? How did you make the first steps into development? Was by using Moralis tools, trying to write some articles, or you were trying to maybe fork a protocol, launch a project?
Mhm. Yeah, so for me, I got interested in crypto in like early 2018 when I was 16, almost 17. And I essentially was already like doing um, software development at the time. I got started with programming when I was 14 doing web development. So I already, by the time I got interested in crypto, I already did a bunch of front-end developments using React, TypeScript, JavaScript, a bunch of other frameworks. And I was also into AI ML, so I already had played a bunch with Python and frameworks like Pandas, TensorFlow, Keras, like the traditional Python data science frameworks like NumPy, SciPy, like all these. And so for me, like when I got into crypto, it was mostly from like intellectual curiosity. I didn't necessarily like want to build anything with it, or I didn't think that um, it was something that I wanted to like spend more time on. So I just essentially picked it up as more of a like thing that I wanted to learn more about. Also an excuse to learn more about how money works in the beginning, right? So it's like
Yes,
when
investing in everything.
yeah, yeah. It's just like okay, like what is yo Dagachi, how you doing? Um, yeah. So I was just learning like how the financial system works, right? How blockchains work, how Bitcoin works, monetary policies, things like that. And eventually, like you start with the rabbit hole, right? Like Ethereum, EVMs, programmable smart contracts. DeFi wasn't a thing then. I mean, when I joined, there was barely any DeFi. It was mostly just like ICOs on Ethereum. And eventually, a few DeFi projects emerged. Ether Delta, which is like a primitive DEX. ETHLend, which eventually became Aave.
Yes.
Uniswap was like released. Yeah, so I was like part of all of that, like
So you
early
saw
DeFi summer and
everything.
before that. Yeah, I
Gotta
saw
be
most of it.
crazy,
Most of it.
dude.
Yeah,
Because
it was crazy. It was
you're right
crazy.
at the center of it, like when we see something like Uniswap start to pick up and actually work, to be
Hmm.
seeing something even before that. And a big question that I have for you is how did you avoid it burning yourself, by releasing some project and everything for so long because you were involved with all the leads pretty much.
I mean, I was 17, 18, 19 during those days. So it's not like I wanted to start a project or anything. I was just mostly like trying to learn stuff and seeing if I like it. And just like going down different curiosity rabbit holes. It started with DeFi, where I was like interested in like different protocols, how they work, what do they do, how they differ. But eventually, like as I started discovering like protocol design and some other applications you can build, like scalability solutions, I got really interested into distributed systems and scalability solutions in general. I wrote this like guide to L2s. I can actually, what is the link where I can like the chat for this
Yeah,
AMA
there's
where I
a
can share
small
the link.
voice channel here. I'm gonna tag you, but it's a little bit hard to see. Discord needs to work on the
Okay, okay,
UX.
I see it. Show chat. Okay, that's good.
Yes.
Okay, I see it. I'll just share like a article I wrote in early
Awesome.
20
I'm
or
also
late 2021.
showing your website in there so people can check out.
Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I found that. Yeah, November 14th, 2021. Yeah, so I wrote this article, like I was doing research about L2s, and I published this, and this was like my first venture into like wider crypto circles. You see, like in the intro, I still say that I'm at Moralis, which is
Yeah.
funny enough. And I was just like curious about different scalability solutions, and I got really pilled by this. And it was also like one of my first exposures to cryptography because like everyone was talking
Nice.
about zero knowledge rollups, right? So like zero knowledge, what is zero knowledge? What is this like weird stuff? So I started learning more about different things that I was still interested in, like MEV, ZK, like there's all these topics, DeFi. I was mostly like very, very open to everything. I started traveling to a bunch of events. Like I went to ETH Lisbon in Portugal in 2021. I met a bunch of people there. Then ETH Denver in February of last year, 2022. Met a bunch more people there, and I also met the Alongside team in person, alongside that XYZ. Let me also share that link. I was working there as a research engineer. They're building a crypto product where they're making essentially a crypto index of different coins and aggregating them into a market index, right? Like a crypto market index. And I was doing research into like how to make it decentralized in the future through like secure multi-party computation, where you have a sort of so multi-party computation is this area of cryptography where you're splitting sort of private computations among several computers, or you can split
Yes.
like private keys across multiple computers and aggregate their signatures to do certain actions within some protocol. And it would be nice, for example, for the use case of Alongside to just have a secure multi-party computation network custody the private keys to these smart contract wallets or EOAs on different networks. And whenever you have to rebalance the portfolio of the index according to some rule set, then you could essentially just have a threshold signature across this multi-party computation network and update it that way in a decentralized way according to some rule set where people stake and can become like part like signatories in this network, stuff like that. But currently they work using a centralized custodian. I think it's Coinbase custody if I'm not mistaken. But yeah,
Can
like like so I was like initially exposed to like a bunch of cool research in cryptography. And I was in the meantime I was exploring. It was like mostly part-time. I also created DeFi around that time,
Nice.
which is like this like learning guide for how to get started with blockchains. Or like blockchain development in general. And for me it was like I was just learning or trying to learn more about blockchain development, like Solidity and whatnot. And I wanted to make something like a research for myself to learn. But if I was making something for myself, I told myself that I might as well make it public and just like if it helps somebody else, it's going to be good. So I made DevBill. I created a Gitcoin grant for it. I got a bunch of funding from a bunch of people, which was really nice. Um, and yeah, I was just mostly exploring at the time.
Can you explain for us what a research engineer does in his job? Because it seems to me like you guys sit
Yeah.
down to create some crazy solution, but it's mostly development. Are you actually writing white papers? So what is the job for a research engineer?
Yeah, research engineer, I think is just like a title in crypto that's used for someone that is building, but the thing that is they're building has never been done before, or it's like you need to like invent a few things or design a new protocol in order for that thing to work. Right? So it's essentially you have to sort of design and iterate over new ideas and then implement those ideas. So the research part is when you're designing ideas and like going through some like protocol design, infrastructure, design stuff, and thinking about how you're going to implement those things. Like defining, for example, which cryptographic primitives you want to use, how do you want to architect different players to interact within a system, defining roles and actions and stuff like that. And the implementation is the engineer part, where you already have like some specification of what you want to do or some idea at least. and you implement that specification or those ideas. So that's like the research engineer role. I
Awesome.
guess that's like how I see it.
That's really good. And bro, something that also a question that I have for you is regarding ZK as a whole. Because we've seen this field
Hmm.
develop, we saw Cairo, we saw Socrates, we're now seeing
Hmm.
Scroll and all different implementations happening. But there's something that's really confusing for me is all the computation still happens off chain, right? So if I'm
Yeah.
computing proofs off chain, how that can be considered decentralized? And I know I can use, I know you ain't gonna be able to unhash the information and get whatever data is in there. But just by doing that off chain seems a little bit weird for me.
Hmm. Yeah. I think it's better to just start with like what is ZK in the first place. So zero knowledge cryptography essentially is a type of cryptography that allows you to prove that a computation happened correctly without revealing some private inputs, for example. And the way that it works is that you can convert some computation, let's say in the case of rollups, you have the EVM, right? For example, the Ethereum virtual machine. And you can create a proof that some computer ran the state transition of the EVM correctly. And instead of you having to run it yourself to verify that it ran correctly, you can just verify this proof. So that's like the simple idea. So the way it works currently, right, like on Ethereum mainnet, you have all these full nodes, and all these full nodes have to listen to the new block that was proposed by the person that gets the right to propose, right? Like the validator that gets the chance to propose a block. Everybody sequences the same block and achieves a new state, and they update their state to the new state, right? So like there's some state A, and the proposer proposes a new block and changes the state from state A to state A plus one. And everybody needs to do the same state transition in order to verify that the computation happened correctly. In the case of rollups, you only need to do this computation once. You don't need to do this like expensive and slow like overhead of computation where everybody needs to recompute the same thing. It's like a lot of redundancy, like very redundant work. In the case of ZK rollups, all you need to do is have one computer run the state transition, create a proof that the state transition happened correctly according to some rule set, and anybody can verify that proof, and they don't have to compute it themselves. They can just verify mathematically that this computation happened correctly.
Amazing, buddy. Amazing. I mean, it's just a little bit confusing because we see all this research, all this development, but we still not seeing
Mhm.
a lot of practical cases. I guess we can talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
yeah.
Zcash, maybe one of the later implementations on Ethereum itself. Do you have any other good examples?
Examples of ZK, you mean?
Yeah, being implemented today.
I mean, I think rollups are still the biggest use case so
Yeah,
far,
it's
right? So
true.
like ZK
True.
Sync, Scroll,
Yeah, true.
Polygon ZKVM, Polygon Maiden, Polygon Hermes, or formerly Hermes, now ZKVM.
That's really cool.
Like e- essentially, like if there's some computation that you want to bring on chain, you can just make a zero knowledge proof of it and put it on chain. The trust assumptions are the same, right? Like you're saying that it seems weird that some people are putting computation off chain and then putting it on chain via zero knowledge proof, but the assumption is literally the same. As long as the cryptography is not broken, you can verify that the computation happened correctly as if you had run it yourself. The whole point is like you
I
don't have
see.
to run the computation yourself. You just verify a proof.
Nice.
And the proof gives you all that you need to know in order to know that whomever claims that this computation is what it is, you can be convinced mathematically that this is actually what happened.
That's pretty cool. And that's not only for privacy, but also for performance, right? Because today I think most precompiles on Ethereum are precompiles because they are quite heavy to run on the chain itself. So which is
Yeah.
interesting that we can offload that computation somewhere. And bro, another
Yeah.
question that
Yeah.
I have for you is that we have this common knowledge that creating cryptography is bad. You shouldn't be creating your own
Hmm.
crypto algorithms. Usually, when people are working on ZK, they are actually they are not working on building a new cryptography algorithm, right? They're just adapting whatever exists to the chain, right?
Yeah, some of them are actually building some new cryptographical primitives, or at least implementations thereof. But those are like state-of-the-art teams that then get auditors involved and like try to standardize it and like look at best security practices. Like the rule of thumb is you don't roll your own crypto if you're a user or just like one developer, but anybody can try and improve the state-of-the-art of cryptography if you have like a doctorate in cryptography or if you're like an insanely good applied cryptographer or something. Um, what these teams are generally doing is they're taking some mathematical construction that is already like somehow mature enough or tested somehow. And then they do an implementation of their specific use case using that specific proof system. To get an example, for example, the Zcash team built this proof system called Halo 2. And the privacy scaling explorations group from the Ethereum Foundation forked it and changed a bunch of things. And from that work, now there's a fork of this Halo 2 proof system, but the original mathematics came from Halo 2, right? From the Zcash team. So the Zcash team did the paper of Halo 2, the first implementation of the paper, and like a bunch of audits of the implementation, audits of the cryptography, and all these sorts of things. And then the privacy scaling exploration groups just took their work and modified it slightly, audited their changes, and now anybody can use their fork to build their own circuits. For example, the Scroll team uses the privacy scaling explorations group Halo 2 fork to build their zkVM circuits with, right? And all of this work is essentially like they didn't roll their own cryptography in the sense that they didn't invent that cryptographic primitive. But everything is like heavily audited and done properly from the security standpoint,
Nice.
right? So you can roll your own cryptography if it's heavily audited from both the mathematical and implementation side of view. And also, the more mature something is, like the more time has been out there, the more people have looked at it, the more people have used it in production or like in some testing form, the more assurances you get that the code base is secure.
Really cool, bro. And I wanna dive off a little bit of development now. And bro, I've been in
Mhm.
this market as an investor, and I've been in this market as a developer too. And I got tired both times. It came to a point where I didn't want to hear the word crypto or blockchain anymore. I didn't want to look at
Mhm.
prices. Bro, do people still ask how your day's going? Or everybody that's talking to is some crypto person that knows you're famous and is, just doing their work? I mean, do you feel like overwhelmed sometimes?
I mean, I've definitely felt like burned out at times, but I don't think that's necessarily like the nature of our space. Like it's weird to deal with the volatility, I guess. Like if you have some financial stake in the things you're building or in the space and the ideas that are behind it. Sometimes like it can feel overwhelming, like when some parties are misbehaving in the space, like other like centralized actors getting a lot of risk involved, right, and then getting liquidated and like and inviting like essentially bad activities to happen in the space. That's always like annoying, but I don't think that's necessarily something that builders that are in here for the right reasons necessarily care about. It sure affects them somewhat, but I don't think it's something that changes their point of view or my point of view for that matter. In terms of like if somebody asks me about my day or things like that, I have friends. So it's like my friendships are somehow separated from crypto, but most of my friends
Nice.
are also crypto friends. So it's not necessarily like bad in that sense. But on Twitter, I don't know. Twitter is like a very different beast, I think. Twitter is mostly for engaging about ideas and talking about problems and solving problems, and at least for developers, right? Like we're just like talking about new developments, things that are building, argue about some definitions or whatnot. But I don't necessarily see it as too much of a social place.
I
For
understand.
unless you don't have because like people usually go to conferences and they like hang out with different friends from Twitter more in person, actually like form bonds and friendships and whatnot.
And brother, recently I was looking at your pictures at Zuzalu, and I saw that you were hanging out with
Mhm.
Vitalik. Can you please explain us what is the experience of being the first time, around the boss? How does it feel, and what kind of environment it is?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, it wasn't my first time meeting Vitalik.
No, but I want
I
to know
met
about your
Vitalik.
first time. I mean, how was the experience?
Oh, the first time. Okay, so the first time was in Denver of last year, East Denver, and we had this hacker house. Actually, now it's like a recurrent series of hacker houses. It's called Jesse's Hacker House. It's an account on Twitter, and so I was part of the first few ones. Let me get a link real quick if I can.
Yeah, I think Jessin 30-year-old VC, right?
Yeah, 13-year-old VC. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's her Twitter handle. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, this. There you go. So I was part of that hacker house, and coincidentally enough, we booked an Airbnb that was above the Optimism Airbnb. So the
Nice.
Optimism team was staying underneath us, and Vitalik came to the Optimism Airbnb to essentially hack on EIP 4844, proto sharding. So he was there with Protolambda and a bunch of Optimism folks, and a bunch of people that were coming to a party that we had in our Airbnb that was organized by Flashbots about MEV. Told Vitalik to come up, and he came up for 30 minutes. So that's how I met him. He just came to our Airbnb. But yeah,
And what does it feel
in terms of
like?
Zuzalu,
I'm hanging out with the top dogs.
it's not like I don't know. Like for me, it's just talking to someone that has like really nice ideas and it's done a lot of good stuff for the space. It's not
Cool.
necessarily like, and the first time I definitely like fangirled a little bit.
It's normal, right?
But uh, yeah, in the end, it's just like a person, right? Everybody is just a person. Not just a person, but you know what I mean. Like it's not like in real life. It's like I guess different. Like you just talk about ideas or things. And yeah, it
By
was
the
it was good. It
way,
was nice
by the
conversations.
way, you guys have a panel coming on ETC, right? No, it's not ETC. What is the
Um,
conference?
I, so I already had a panel with him at Zuzalu.
Ah, okay.
Um,
Okay. So, but you have
so
another one
there's
coming,
this.
no?
No. That was only that one. I mean, I
Awesome.
have talks at different events coming, but not the panel with Vitalik. The panel with Vitalik was at Zuzalu for ZKML.
Awesome, bro.
Let
Awesome.
me share the Let me share the link if you want to watch it.
And
This
and,
one.
and bro, now I want to talk a little bit about WorldCoin, the new project you're working on, and I think that's also
Hmm.
being run by Sun Altman, right? So you've been around these really big names, and there has been a lot of controversy, I guess. Not a lot, but some controversy regarding WorldCoin. And I want to make you maybe a
Hmm.
little bit of a polemic question, but why KYC? And is even are we even talking about KYC when we talk about WorldCoin? Because that seems to be an idea that goes not so well with crypto. You understand what I mean, right?
Yeah. So WorldCoin essentially there's three things that we're building. One is the World app, which is just a phone wallet, like smart contract wallet app for your phone. The second one is the WorldCoin token, and the third one is the World ID protocol. And so the World ID protocol is what you're sort of referring to when you're like saying KYC. It's not KYC, but I'll get into the details. So World ID is a privacy preserving proof of personhood protocol. And the way that it works is that we have this hardware device that is called the orb. Let me just get some links ready so I can maybe like go through it. Uh, yeah, so essentially it's this hardware device that has it's essentially like an iris scanner. And the way that it works is that it has a camera with a bunch of sensors. And this orb, what it does is it determines that the person in front of it is a real human being. and then it takes a high resolution image of the person's irises, and it creates a sort of uniqueness encoding. It creates like a uniqueness representation of that specific, of those specific irises. And this encoding is pseudonymous, right? There's no way to match, or like it doesn't match any person. There's no like information that's gathered. There's no like name or phone number or any other private information that's consumed or taken in by the orb. The only thing that it takes in is the image of both irises, and it creates this randomness encoding or randomness string that represents the randomness of the irises. It compares the randomness against all the other previous registered users. And then it gives the user a private key that they can use to create zero knowledge proofs that they're unique, that they're unique people, that they're unique real life human beings. I can go into the details of how these things work, but essentially the TLDR, to answer your question, is that it's not KYC. It doesn't collect personal identifiable information, PII. And the only thing that the orb spits out is this thing called an iris code, which is just a pseudonymous string. It doesn't contain any personally identifiable information.
Really
And the
nice.
original iris images are deleted in the memory of the orb.
I mean,
So let me
crypto is
just...
crazy because people they are gonna look for any kind of problematic thing they can find, which is nice, right? But what I see that's really good that you're always working on Twitter, always debating these people. You know, I always see you coming up with links, explanations. So it's quite cool. Most of your job today is not development, right? It's mostly maybe relationships.
Most of my day is development still, and
Interesting.
will be. So I'm still a research engineer. I'm a research engineer at WorldCoin on the protocol team. So I've done a bunch of Rust. I've done a bunch of Solidity stuff, a bit of applied cryptography stuff. I'm currently working on a trusted setup ceremony for our zero-knowledge circuits for doing batch insertions into the world ID Merkle tree. It's like a lot of things to unravel, I know, but
Nice.
I can talk more in detail about anything. But like most of my job is still, or most of my work at WorldCoin is engineering.
And you're 21 or something, right? So you're super young and
Yeah,
already
21.
rocking. Like,
21.
bro, what is your? I don't know how much you can disclose of this, but what is your pipeline of development today? Meaning, the tools you use to code, let's say Foundry, and whenever you make a commit, you have a pipeline on GitHub. There's running a few fuzzlers. I mean, what the process looks like?
So I guess it depends like what you're building. For Solidity, it's definitely just Solidity and Foundry, and maybe like some static analysis tools. But yeah, it's mostly like Solidity and Foundry for testing. Like that's the main work line. In terms of like GitHub setup or like Git setup, we have some continuous integration, continuous deployment stuff. So the continuous integration just essentially runs all the Foundry scripts and a fuzzer for every single commit that you do. And it checks all the
Nice.
contracts like still compile, that the test pass, and that the fuzzer didn't find any weird inputs for your functions. In terms of like Rust, then this is like Rust and some libraries that you use. In terms of the Ethereum ecosystem, the best ones are, well, Ethers RS, but now there's a new version of Ethers RS called Alloy. It's a rewrite from scratch from the Paradigm folks.
Rust?
Alloy RS. Let me just... Yeah, Rust.
Awesome.
Rust is a programming language.
And you see, from working with all these developers, seeing all these people, there's any alpha you can share with us? Like, there's anything you heard once about the EVM or about coding on Ethereum that stick to your mind and you remember to tell us?
And there's a lot of things going on. Let me think. I mean, like, there's many different approaches or many different things that are happening right now. Some people are still sticking to the EVM and building better EVM tooling. Right. So think of all the ZK EVM rollups or the EVM, like EVM rollups, whether ZK or optimistic, right? So Optimism and Arbitrum are EVM optimistic rollups. Then you have ZK Sync, which is ZK EVM compatible. You have Polygon ZK EVM, and you have Scroll. So there's like these projects that are going the EVM route, and if you learn Solidity and Foundry in that tech stack, you're still going to be relevant, or Viper or Huff or any other EVM language. Some people are taking a different approach and they're trying to build their own virtual machine, like Starknet, right? Starknet has their own virtual machine called Cairo, and their own programming language, which is also called Cairo. Yeah, so I don't know, there's like the cool things, I think, in my opinion, is that many people are building lots of different primitives and lots of different pieces of infrastructure,
Nice.
and there's a lot of exploration work happening. And there's different levels of the stack that you can contribute to as a developer, from the infrastructure itself, right? Or to cryptography. Like cryptography in distributed systems is like the bare, like the bottom of the stack, right? Where you can, like, the most fundamental pieces, where you can contribute to like some client implementations for Ethereum or for the rollups themselves. Then you can go like one layer up and you can start building applications, let's say like smart contracts. And within smart contracts, you can build different like use cases, right? Whether it's a financial protocol, like DeFi, whatever, like lending protocol, market maker, or like some exchange, or something. And then the last level of abstraction you can contribute to is user experience, right? Whether it's like wallets, whether it's like account abstraction stuff, whether it's like front end user experience, like generic like design, user experience flows, those sorts of things. So like there's like different levels as a developer you can contribute to, and all of them are interesting. There's lots and lots of use cases that are popping up around different primitives that are interesting.
Amazing, man. And what excites you the most about working with blockchain? Like, what kind of work you like to do a lot?
To me, it's just the fact that you can scale applications really, really fast. You can just deploy an application and anybody can have access to it immediately in a permissionless way. I think that's the coolest part. And the people just have private keys they can use to essentially attest to some information, or they can essentially prove that they're themselves, that they don't have to reveal information they don't want to about themselves. Um, it's just like building an application, anybody can use it, nobody can censor you from using it, nobody can prevent you from using it anyway. And you can interact with all these people that have access to blockchains, which I think is really, really cool.
Awesome. I have one question here. The question is, what are the needed areas to matter if you're looking at protocol engineering with Rust?
So what areas do you need to master? I mean, depends what you mean by protocol engineering. Like if you want to become, let's say, like a contributor to Foundry or like any of the Ethereum infrastructure, like there's like different things you can contribute to in Rust. Rust is just a programming language. You can learn the programming language. So it's better, like Rust, for example, it's something that doesn't have a linear learning curve. At the beginning is very steep. It's very hard to get started with Rust and be productive from the beginning, but eventually it like becomes gradually easier. So I recommend just like reading the Rust book, building some like test project that like implements the things you learn, trying to get familiar with the language, going through some resources. If you want, I can share a bunch of those resources in the chat afterwards. And in terms of like how to apply those skills, well, you first need to sort of know what you want to contribute to or what you want to like help with. There's different Rust projects within Ethereum or within rollups. So for example, if you want to contribute to Foundry, which is a testing tool for Solidity smart contracts, you can learn about the different libraries that it uses, the different features that are being implemented, and just trying to get yourself familiarized with the APIs of those libraries. Right. So for example, if you want to build a command that allows you to test the smart contract in some way, then you have to learn sort of how the blockchain works, how the EVM works. Like there's like, you always have a programming language is just a tool to solve some problem. Some problem usually has some areas that it's tackling, and you have to sort of learn what things you're trying to solve, and then the tool to do that, right? There's like many different things, but
Makes
master
sense.
the
Makes
language and
sense.
master the context, I guess.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. There's a second question, and I want to make it a little bit, give it a little bit of a spin. So, seeing what you're seeing today, let's say I want to get a job that pays me a good salary, let's say over 200K. What would be an area to focus on? And I know there's things such as ZK and everything, but can we do something maybe a little bit easier for the dude that doesn't know a lot of math in the smart contract area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like for sure, like if you're good at anything, you're definitely gonna get a lot of money, or it's just like you're gonna get rewarded proportionally to your skill set. Um, what's the best way to get job ready and attract companies? To get job ready, I think it's just build stuff in the open, right? Contribute to open source code bases, contribute to projects. Ideally, maybe even get an internship in one of these projects and build in the open for those projects. To give an example, for example, there's the Nethermind internship, which is pretty nice, or the Ethereum Core Protocol Fellowship internship. It's just pretty nice. So you get some experience building stuff in the open and actually apply, like you actually build something essentially, and people can see that, hey, you've built something and you have some skill. It's good to also talk to a lot of people that you want to be like, right? If you want to be an applied cryptographer, then maybe talk to Kobe Kirkin from Geometry and talk to Zach from Aztec and talk to like the best applied cryptographers, right, that in the space, and sort of mimic what they're doing, right? Like build things that are interesting, build things that are cool, solve problems that are important, or at least help somehow. So I guess like contributing to open source projects is good to one learn and for two show your skill set. In terms of smart contract engineering, I guess you can also start with auditing in a way. It's good to like learn how to learn like proper solidity is by like starting to learn security and like auditing a few smart contracts, building some of your own. There's a great guide by Patrick Collins to learn Foundry and Solidity.
Yes.
Let me find it real quick. Learn Foundry. And it's 3 6-hour videos, which are pretty huge, but it's worth it. Oh, it's actually more than 6 hours. I
I don't
remember
know
them
if you know
correctly.
this, but we did 32 hours of Patrick live here. Like we followed the
Oh,
whole,
awesome.
yeah, we followed the whole video on YouTube. It was a crazy day.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy stuff. Yeah, he's insane.
He's
He
really
has
good,
built
really good,
pretty
dude.
much like one of the best tutorials. I think this one is like the ultimate tutorial to get started with Solidity and Foundry and smart contracts. And yeah, like there's just so many things you can do, honestly. For me, I guess is just have open curiosity and like work on the problems that resonate with you. So for example, for me, I got really interested in cryptography and now I'm learning cryptography from bottoms up, right? Like learning the math, learning how to use them, like how to build cryptography stuff, whether it's tooling or how to just use their API. Like if I want to hash something, then I need to figure out which library I need to use this hash function and how to take the input, how to put out the output, and how to use that output somehow within the application that I'm building. It's just have an open mind, be curious, build stuff in the open, talk to people, talk, talk to people about the things you're building, share it, contribute. Essentially, if you provide value to people, people will have no issue paying you money. That's how it is, right? The more value you provide, the more you can charge for the value you're providing.
Yeah, it's very, very true. Bro, we're coming to an end. I would like to know if you have any closing thoughts, any final message to give people here and people that will hear this in the future.
Mm, mm,
Keep them
I'm not necessarily
curious.
sure if there's something specific. For me, it's just like stay curious and follow the curiosity rabbit holes. I think that's my favorite line. Just stay curious, be hungry, learn. If you have questions like about lots of different things, ChatGPT is great. Sometimes it hallucinates stuff, but overall, like if I have some like basic issue about different things, then I just ask ChatGPT or for like answering things from bottoms up, or at least it's a combination of like Google and ChatGPT essentially. It's great for learning. Talk to people on Twitter, interact with them, the people that you want to be like. It's really good. And I don't know, just stay hungry, I guess.
Yeah, bro. I mean, that's great tip. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was really, really insightful. I'm excited for more things that are coming from your end. Excited for the WorldCoin project. Thank you so much. And just one final question. Is DCBuilder decentralized builder?
No. It's my real name
Oh,
initials.
bro, come on, my life is a
Yeah.
lie now.
Yeah, no. Many people think that so the DCBuilder name, I just didn't know like what to do, and I saw this guy called DC Investor, and DC Investor, the DC in his name stands for Washington DC because he's based out of DC and he's lived there for like 10 years and he really likes the city. For me, it was just like my initials, my real name initials. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, DC, and talk to you guys later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.